Manchester United's future, youth development, tactical decisions, and Rashford's Barcelona crossroads. The intersection of past, present, and future. Manchester United has always existed at the confluence of multiple timelines. The club's glorious past casts long shadows over present ambitions, while decisions made today ripple forward into an uncertain future. Rarely have these temporal dimensions been more dramatically intertwined than in the current moment, where youth development prospects, tactical selection dilemmas, and the potential departure of an established star all demand simultaneous attention and careful navigation. Each storyline carries its own weight, its own implications, and its own emotional resonance for a fan base that has learned to hope cautiously after years of disappointment. The essence of Manchester United's identity has always been rooted in youth development. From the Busby Babes to the class of '92, the club's greatest eras have featured homegrown talents stepping on Old Trafford's hallowed turf and writing their names into football folklore. Today, as Ruben Amorim establishes his vision for the club's future, questions about which young players deserve opportunities, how international careers might shape their trajectories, and whether the academy can still produce genuine first-team contributors all take on renewed urgency. The decision by rising star Ayden regarding his international future represents one data point in this larger conversation about United's youth development pipeline and its ability to nurture the next generation of talent. Simultaneously, on-field realities demand immediate attention. When established players like Joshua Zirkzee struggle to meet expectations, managers face difficult decisions about whether patience or ruthlessness better serves the team's interests. The calls for Amorim to give a lethal wonder kid their debut against Wolves reflect supporters' perpetual hunger for that magical moment when a young talent announces themselves on the big stage. These moments have defined Manchester United across generations, and the possibility that another such breakthrough might be imminent generates excitement that transcends normal tactical discussions. Yet perhaps the most emotionally charged storyline involves Marcus Rashford, the boy from Wythenshawe who became a Manchester United icon before his 25th birthday. The reports that Barcelona members have voted to pursue his permanent signing after a potential loan spell represent a potential turning point not just in one player's career, but in Manchester United's modern identity. Rashford embodies the club's youth development ethos, having progressed through the academy to become a full England international and club talisman. His potential departure to Barcelona would force difficult questions about whether United can still retain their best homegrown talents, whether their current project genuinely offers the ambition elite players demand, and what such a loss would mean for the club's soul. Welcome, understanding the broader context. Welcome to this comprehensive exploration of three interconnected narratives that illuminate Manchester United's current reality and future direction. These stories may initially appear distinct: a youth player's international decision, a tactical selection dilemma, and a potential transfer of an established star. But they are unified by deeper themes about identity, ambition, and the perpetual challenge of honoring tradition while embracing necessary change. For Manchester United supporters, few topics generate more passion than youth development. The club's history has conditioned fans to believe that the next academy graduate might be special, that homegrown players understand the club's values in ways that expensive imports never quite grasp, and that giving youth opportunities represents not just good business but moral imperative. When reports emerge about promising teenagers making decisions that will shape their careers, or about wonder kids potentially earning debuts, it taps into this deeply held belief system that youth development is central to what Manchester United means. The tactical dimensions of team selection add another layer of complexity. Ruben Amorim arrived at Old Trafford with a clear philosophy and proven track record, but implementing that vision requires making difficult choices about which players fit his system and which don't. When expensive signings struggle, the pressure to persist with them conflicts with the meritocratic principles that good management demands. Should Zirkzee receive continued opportunities to find his form? Or does Amorim need to demonstrate that no player, regardless of their transfer fee, is guaranteed a place? These decisions shape not just individual matches, but the culture Amorim is trying to establish. The Marcus Rashford situation operates on yet another plane, involving questions of loyalty, ambition, and whether Manchester United can still compete with Europe's absolute elite for the services of their best players. Rashford's potential move to Barcelona would be analyzed through countless lenses: tactical fit, financial implications, career trajectory, legacy considerations, and what it signals about both clubs' current standing in football's hierarchy. For United, losing a homegrown superstar to a European rival would sting in ways that differ qualitatively from selling a player acquired from elsewhere. This analysis will examine each storyline in depth, exploring not just the surface facts but the deeper implications, historical context, and future ramifications. We'll consider Ayden Heaven's international decision as a case study in modern youth player career management, dissect the arguments for and against giving a wonder kid their debut, and thoroughly analyze Rashford's Barcelona situation from multiple perspectives. By the conclusion, you'll have a comprehensive understanding of how these distinct narratives weave together to illustrate Manchester United's current challenges and opportunities. Ayden Heaven's international decision: navigating modern football's identity politics. Understanding the modern international landscape. The decision facing Ayden Heaven regarding his international future reflects the increasingly complex calculus that young players with multiple eligibility options must navigate in modern football. Gone are the days when international representation was a straightforward question of birthplace or heritage. Today's young talents often possess eligibility for multiple national teams through various combinations of birth location, parental heritage, and residency requirements. The choices they make can profoundly impact their careers, shaping everything from playing time opportunities to commercial value and eventual legacy. For a rising Manchester United prospect like Heaven, the international decision carries additional weight because of how it intersects with his club development. Representing a nation with established stars in his position might mean limited playing time during international windows, potentially slowing his development during crucial formative years. Conversely, choosing a nation where he'd be a regular starter could provide the consistent international experience that accelerates maturity and tactical sophistication. Yet there are also emotional and identity dimensions that transcend pure career calculation. Questions of personal heritage, family pride, and authentic connection to a nation's culture and people. The timing of Heaven's decision is particularly significant. International commitments become binding once a player represents a nation in competitive fixtures beyond youth level. Making this choice too early can foreclose options that might become preferable later in a career, while waiting too long risks missing formative international experiences that could boost development. The young defender must weigh immediate opportunities against long-term potential, personal identity against career optimization, and loyalty to heritage against pragmatic ambition. Manchester United's perspective on international commitments. From Manchester United's standpoint, their young players' international commitments represent a double-edged sword. On one hand, international recognition validates the club's development work and raises players' profiles, potentially increasing their future value. A Manchester United defender earning caps for a prestigious national team brings reflected glory to the club's academy and attracts other talented youngsters who see evidence that the pathway to international football runs through Old Trafford. On the other hand, international duties create additional physical and mental demands on young players already navigating the challenges of breaking into a top-level club. Travel, particularly to distant continents, disrupts training routines and recovery cycles. The tactical demands of international football sometimes conflict with what players are learning at club level, potentially creating confusion or requiring mental compartmentalization. And there's always injury risk, the nightmare scenario where a player gets hurt on international duty and returns to their club diminished. Heaven's specific decision likely involves conversations with United's coaching staff, his family, possibly mentors who have navigated similar situations, and representatives who understand the commercial and career implications. The club's input would focus on ensuring Heaven makes an informed decision that he feels genuinely connected to, while also considering how different international commitments might impact his United career trajectory. There's no universal right answer. What matters is that the choice aligns with Heaven's authentic sense of identity while positioning him for optimal career development. The broader pattern in youth football. Heaven's situation reflects broader trends in how international football intersects with youth development in the modern game. We've seen numerous examples of players switching national teams, changing allegiances based on evolving personal identity or frustration with lack of opportunities, and strategically choosing nations that offer better pathways to major tournament participation. These decisions have become increasingly accepted as legitimate aspects of career management rather than questioned as somehow illegitimate or disloyal. The increased acceptance stems partly from recognition that identity is complex, especially for young people with genuinely multicultural backgrounds. A player born in England to parents from another nation, who perhaps spent formative years living in yet a third country, might legitimately feel connections to multiple places. Forcing such individuals into singular national identities seems increasingly anachronistic in a globalized world where fluid, hyphenated identities are common and unremarkable. For Manchester United's academy, producing players who face these international dilemmas is actually a sign of success. It means they are developing talents of sufficient quality that multiple nations want to claim them. The club's role is to provide guidance without pressure, ensuring that young players make decisions they can live with across their entire careers. Whatever Heaven decides regarding his international future, United's responsibility is to continue developing him into the best possible footballer, ensuring that he has the platform to honor whichever nation he chooses to represent. Long-term career implications. The international decision Heaven makes will reverberate across his entire career in ways both predictable and surprising. Representing a traditionally powerful nation might mean competing with established stars for playing time, but offers the prestige of major tournament participation and the technical and tactical education that comes from training with elite internationals. Choosing a smaller nation could provide guaranteed playing time and leadership opportunities, but might mean fewer high-profile matches and less international recognition. There are also commercial considerations that, while perhaps less central to a young player's thinking, do factor into modern football careers. Players who become regular internationals for prestigious nations command higher commercial value, attracting sponsorship opportunities and raising their profile in key markets. This increased commercial value then feeds back into their bargaining position during contract negotiations, creating a virtuous cycle where international success and club career trajectory reinforce each other. The decision's permanence also matters psychologically. Once Heaven commits to representing a nation in competitive senior football, that choice cannot easily be reversed. Living with that decision across a potentially 15-year international career requires certainty that the choice aligns with genuine personal identity rather than temporary career calculation. Many players who made pragmatic rather than authentic international choices have later expressed regret, feeling disconnected from the nation they represent despite the career benefits that decision provided. The Wonder Kid debate. Should Amorim fast-track youth over struggling signings? Analyzing Joshua Zirkzee's challenges. The harsh assessment that Joshua Zirkzee's performances represent howlers worthy of being dropped reflects the unforgiving environment that Manchester United players inhabit. The Dutch forward arrived with considerable expectations, having impressed in Serie A and earned recognition as one of Europe's promising young strikers. However, the transition to Premier League football under a new tactical system has proven challenging, with performances that have frustrated supporters and apparently called his position in the team into question. Understanding Zirkzee's struggles requires examining multiple factors beyond simple quality assessment. The Premier League's intensity, pace, and physical demands differ significantly from Italian football, requiring adaptation periods even for talented players. Amorim's tactical system makes specific demands of his forwards, movement patterns, pressing responsibilities, positional discipline, that might differ from what Zirkzee learned in previous environments. And there's the psychological dimension. Confidence affects performance, and struggling publicly at a club of United's magnitude can create negative spirals where mistakes breed anxiety, which produces more mistakes. The question facing Amram is how long to persist with Xerxes before making changes. Managerial philosophy differs on this point. Some believe that expensive signings must be given extended opportunities to find form, that the investment demands patience, and that quality eventually emerges with proper support. Others argue that meritocracy must be ruthlessly enforced, that no player's status protects them from being dropped if their performances don't meet required standards. Amram's decision will send signals about what kind of culture he's building at Manchester United. The case for the Wonder Kid. The argument for giving a lethal Wonder Kid their debut against Wolves rests on several pillars. First, there's the meritocratic principle that the player performing best in training and reserve matches deserves opportunities regardless of age. If a young striker is genuinely outperforming Xerxes in preparation, traditional football values suggest they should be rewarded with a chance to demonstrate those qualities in the first team. Second, there's the tactical argument that fresh legs and fearless confidence might provide what the team currently lacks. Young players unburdened by reputation or expectation sometimes play with freedom that more established professionals have lost. They haven't yet learned to be afraid of making mistakes, haven't been ground down by public criticism, and often possess the directness and instinctive quality that can unlock stubborn defenses. If Amram believes this Wonder Kid possesses the technical tools to contribute, their psychological profile might make them even more valuable than someone theoretically superior who is currently drowning in negative confidence. Third, there's United's historical identity as a club that trusts youth. Supporters yearn for moments that echo Sir Alex Ferguson giving chances to Beckham, Scholes, Giggs, and others who repaid that faith by becoming legends. Every young player handed a debut carries the possibility of being the next great homegrown success story. This emotional and cultural dimension transcends pure tactical calculation, tapping into what many believe makes Manchester United special: the risks and counterarguments. However, rushing young players into high-pressure situations also carries significant risks. The Premier League is unforgiving, and defenders with years of experience will ruthlessly exploit any technical or physical limitations. A young striker thrust into a crucial match might suffer an experience that damages their confidence for months or years. Football history includes numerous cautionary tales of wonder kids given opportunities too early, struggling badly, and never recovering psychologically from that early exposure. There's also the question of whether this unnamed wonder kid is genuinely ready or whether calls for their inclusion represent supporters' frustration with current options rather than objective assessment of the youngster's capabilities. Fans naturally romanticize academy prospects, projecting hopes and dreams onto young players they've perhaps only seen in highlight videos or reserve matches. The reality of Premier League football often differs dramatically from youth team dominance. From Amram's perspective, he possesses information that supporters lack. He observes these players daily in training, understands their tactical comprehension, knows their physical and psychological readiness, and can assess whether they're genuinely prepared for the step up. If he continues selecting Xerxes despite poor performances, it might reflect that the alternatives, including wonder kids, simply aren't ready yet regardless of how appealing their potential appears. Finding the right balance. The optimal approach likely involves nuanced thinking rather than absolute rules. Perhaps the wonder kid deserves a place on the bench, providing an option if the match situation allows introducing them in a lower pressure scenario. Maybe they should feature in cup competitions where the stakes are slightly lower, but the opposition is still meaningful. Gradual exposure, building confidence through manageable challenges before asking them to shoulder huge responsibility, represents smart player development. Amram must also consider team dynamics. How would dropping an expensive summer signing after just months affect dressing room confidence in his decision-making? Would it create an atmosphere where players feel one bad run of form might see them exiled? Or would it demonstrate refreshing ruthlessness that raises standards across the squad? These cultural considerations matter as much as tactical ones when building a team capable of sustained success. The Wolves fixture itself also factors into the decision. Is this a match where United are expected to dominate possession, creating numerous chances that might suit a raw but instinctive finisher? Or will it be a tight, physical battle where experience and tactical maturity matter more than youthful exuberance? Amorim's tactical analysis of the specific opponent should inform whether this particular match represents an appropriate moment for a wonderkid debut. Historical context and precedent. Manchester United's history with young strikers provides both inspiration and cautionary tales for this decision. Marcus Rashford's emergency debut against Midtjylland, where he scored twice, represents the dream scenario. A youngster thrust into action through necessity who seizes the moment spectacularly. That breakthrough launched one of the most significant careers in recent United history and vindicated the club's faith in youth development. However, there are also examples of young strikers given opportunities before they were ready, struggling with the pressure and never quite recovering the confidence that early exposure damaged. The key differentiator often seems to be whether the opportunity came organically, when the player was genuinely prepared, versus being forced by external pressure or managerial desperation. Amorim's track record at Sporting Lisbon included successfully integrating young talents into his first team, suggesting he possesses good judgment about when players are ready. If he decides this wonderkid should debut against Wolves, supporters should trust that assessment based on his proven developmental credentials. Conversely, if he continues with more experienced options, that too deserves respect as the decision of someone with better information and understanding than those watching from outside. Marcus Rashford and Barcelona, a crossroads for player and club. Understanding the Barcelona referendum. The report that Barcelona members have voted to approve pursuing Marcus Rashford's permanent signing represents one of the most significant potential transfers in Manchester United's recent history. Barcelona's unique governance structure, where members vote on major decisions, means this isn't simply a club executive's whim, but reflects broader institutional will. For Rashford to have passed this democratic test indicates that Barcelona's membership believes he would significantly strengthen their squad and represents worthwhile investment. The structure of the potential deal, starting with a loan before a permanent transfer, reflects pragmatic thinking from both clubs' perspectives. For Barcelona, operating under well-documented financial constraints, a loan provides opportunity to assess Rashford's fit within their system and squad before committing to a permanent deal. For Manchester United, it creates a scenario where they might facilitate Rashford's departure without appearing to push out a homegrown hero, framing it instead as providing him an opportunity to experience a different challenge. However, the loan-to-permanent structure also creates complications. During the loan period, Rashford would be strengthening a European rival while United potentially lacks adequate replacement. If he excels at Barcelona, the permanent transfer becomes more expensive and psychologically harder for United to accept. If he struggles, United might end up welcoming back a player whose confidence has been further damaged and whose market value has declined. These dynamics make the loan approach risky for all parties despite its superficial appeal as a trial period. Rashford's perspective and motivations. From Marcus Rashford's viewpoint, a move to Barcelona represents multiple potential benefits. The chance to play for one of football's most storied clubs, to experience La Liga's different tactical and technical demands, and to work with Barcelona's coaching staff could reinvigorate a career that has stagnated somewhat at United. After spending his entire professional life at one club, exposure to different methods and philosophies might unlock aspects of his game that have remained underdeveloped. There's also the competitive ambition dimension. If Rashford believes Barcelona offers better chances of winning major trophies than Manchester United's current project, that calculation might override sentimental attachment to his boyhood club. Elite athletes are driven by the desire to win the sport's biggest prizes, and if Rashford has concluded that United's trajectory makes that impossible in the near term, seeking opportunities elsewhere represents legitimate professional ambition rather than disloyalty. The Barcelona move would also address some of the pressures that come with being Marcus Rashford at Manchester United. The intense scrutiny, the weight of expectation as a homegrown player representing his local club, the constant media attention to both football and off-field activities. All of this creates stress that might be affecting his performances. Starting fresh at a new club, where he'd be judged primarily on football performances rather than carrying symbolic weight as an academy graduate, might prove psychologically liberating. Manchester United's decision framework. For Manchester United, deciding whether to facilitate Rashford's departure involves agonizing calculations across multiple dimensions. The football question is whether his current form and future potential justify his place in the team and his substantial wages. If Amram's assessment is that Rashford doesn't fit his tactical system or lacks the required work rate and discipline, retaining him represents expensive sentimentality rather than sound squad management. The financial dimension is also significant. Rashford's wages are substantial, and freeing that money from the wage bill creates room for other investments. A permanent transfer fee, even at a reduced rate given his current form, would also provide funds for squad reinforcement elsewhere. From a pure financial optimization perspective, selling Rashford if he's not central to Amram's plans makes sense, particularly if his commercial value is declining along with his on-field performances. However, there are powerful counterarguments. Rashford remains a player of genuine quality who has previously performed at world-class levels for United. His struggles might be temporary, the result of tactical uncertainty during managerial transitions or psychological factors that new coaching might address. Selling him only to watch him rediscover his best form at Barcelona would be a public relations disaster and a genuine loss of elite talent. The symbolic dimension cannot be ignored either. Rashford represents Manchester United's connection to Manchester, the idea that local boys can still make it at one of the world's biggest clubs. His community work and charitable efforts have made him a figure of genuine importance beyond football. Facilitating his departure to Barcelona sends a message about United's current status, that they become a selling club unable to retain their best homegrown talents when European giants come calling. The Barcelona fit question. Whether Rashford would actually thrive at Barcelona deserves careful analysis. The Catalan club's style of play, emphasizing possession, positional discipline, and technical security, differs significantly from a more direct, transition-focused football that has characterized Rashford's best performances for United. His greatest strengths, pace, directness, ability to run in behind defenses, might be less valued in Barcelona's system than the technical and tactical qualities that their approach prioritizes. Barcelona's expectations would also differ from what Rashford has experienced at United. While he's faced criticism at Old Trafford, he's also received sustained support as a homegrown player. At Barcelona, without that academy connection and arriving at a moment when the club is trying to re-establish itself among Europe's elite, he'd face immediate pressure to justify the investment. The patience shown to homegrown talents often isn't extended to expensive imports, particularly at clubs with Barcelona's demanding culture. The linguistic and cultural adjustment also matters. While many modern footballers navigate international moves successfully, adapting to life in a new country with a different language, while simultaneously trying to perform at the highest level creates challenges that shouldn't be minimized. Some players thrive on such challenges, finding the new environment stimulating. Others struggle with the accumulated stress of so many simultaneous adjustments. Alternative scenarios and outcomes. Several potential outcomes exist beyond the simple binary of Rashford leaving or staying. He could reject Barcelona's approach, recommit to Manchester United, and rediscover his best form under Amram's guidance. This would represent the ideal scenario for United supporters. Their prodigal son rejects external temptation and repays renewed faith with performances that remind everyone of his quality. Alternatively, Rashford could agitate for the move, creating a situation where United must decide whether retaining an unhappy player serves any purpose. History suggests that once a player's head is turned toward a new challenge, their performances at their current club often decline as motivation and commitment waver. Managing such situations requires delicate handling to avoid toxicity spreading through the squad. There's also the possibility that Barcelona's interest proves less concrete than reported, that the member vote doesn't translate to actual transfer activity, or that financial constraints make the deal impossible regardless of institutional will. Transfer speculation often proves far more dramatic than eventual reality, with many reported interests never materializing into genuine negotiations. The broader implications for United's project. Regardless of the specific outcome, the Rashford-Barcelona situation illuminates broader questions about Manchester United's current status in football's hierarchy. The fact that Barcelona feels confident pursuing one of United's homegrown stars, and that Rashford might seriously consider the move, suggests both clubs are in transitional moments where their relative standings are genuinely uncertain. For United, preventing such departures in the future requires delivering success on the pitch that makes staying more attractive than any external opportunity. If Rashford does leave and United responds by winning trophies with a team built around different attacking talents, it might ultimately prove a necessary step in the club's evolution. If he leaves and United continues struggling while he thrives at Barcelona, it will stand as a damning indictment of the club's current direction. The decision will also affect how other young talents view Manchester United as a development destination. If the message becomes that even homegrown players who make it to the first team will eventually be pushed out or tempted away, it might damage the club's ability to recruit the next generation of academy prospects. Conversely, if Rashford stays and rediscovers his form, it reinforces the narrative that United remains a place where loyalty is rewarded and local heroes can build complete careers. The interconnected narratives: youth, performance, and identity. Understanding the common threads. While Ayden Heaven's international decision, the Wonder Kid debut debate, and Marcus Rashford's Barcelona situation might initially appear as separate stories, they share deeper thematic connections. All three involve questions about Manchester United's identity, the role of youth development in the club's future, and how performance standards should be enforced while maintaining cultural values that have historically defined the institution. Heaven's international choice, while personal to him, reflects on United's ability to develop young talents who attract international attention. A player choosing to represent a nation that offers clearer pathways to playing time might be implicitly commenting on how difficult breaking into Manchester United's first team has become. If the club's academy produces talents who can succeed internationally but struggle to earn opportunities at Old Trafford, it suggests something has gone wrong with the integration pathway between academy and first team. The Wonder Kid debate directly addresses this integration challenge. If talented young strikers are ready for opportunities but aren't receiving them, it suggests that meritocracy has broken down, that expensive signings are protected from competition regardless of performance. This would represent a departure from United's historical values and might explain why young players increasingly look externally for development opportunities rather than trusting the Old Trafford pathway. Rashford's situation represents the potential endpoint of this broken system. A homegrown player who successfully navigated the academy pathway and became a star, but who now feels that his development has stagnated or that his ambitions are better served elsewhere. If United loses Rashford after investing years in his development, it validates concerns that the club has lost the ability to retain its best homegrown talents once they reach their peak. What this means for Amorim's project. Ruben Amorim inherited these challenges and must now address them, while simultaneously trying to improve results and implement his tactical vision. His decisions regarding youth opportunities, performance standards, and player retention will define not just whether United succeeds in the short term, but what kind of club they become over the longer arc. The optimal approach likely involves renewed commitment to meritocracy, genuinely rewarding the best performers regardless of age, price tag, or reputation, while also providing appropriate support and development pathways for young talents, so they don't feel their only option is leaving. This balance is easier to describe than achieve, requiring sophisticated player management, clear communication, and willingness to make difficult decisions. Amorim must also consider how these various situations affect each other. If he fast-tracks a wonder kid into the team and they struggle, it might damage the confidence of other young players watching that experiment fail. If he facilitates Rashford's departure without securing adequate replacement, it creates pressure on remaining attackers while potentially sending a message that United has accepted their status as a development club for wealthier institutions. The role of supporter expectations. Manchester United's global fan base brings its own pressures to these situations. Supporters often have romantic attachments to youth development and homegrown players that don't always align with hard-headed assessment of quality and fit. The emotional investment in seeing academy graduates succeed can cloud judgment about whether they genuinely merit opportunities or whether sentiment is overriding meritocracy. Balancing these emotional dimensions with performance requirements represents one of football management's perpetual challenges. Supporters want to see youth given chances, but they also demand winning performances and trophy success. When these desires conflict, when young players aren't quite ready, or when retaining a struggling homegrown star prevents optimal team selection, managers face criticism regardless of their choices. Amorim's communication with supporters matters as much as his actual decisions. If he can articulate clear principles about when youth will be trusted, what performance standards all players must meet, and how decisions about players like Rashford align with broader vision, he can bring supporters along with decisions that might otherwise prove controversial. Defining moments in Manchester United's evolution. As we reach the conclusion of this analysis, the interconnected nature of these three narratives becomes even clearer. Ayden deciding his international future, debates about whether wonder kids deserve opportunities over struggling signings, and Marcus Rashford potentially leaving for Barcelona all represent inflection points in Manchester United's ongoing evolution. The decisions made in response to these situations will reveal what kind of club United is becoming under new leadership, and whether they can rediscover the values and methods that once made them English football's preeminent institution. The youth development question cuts to the heart of Manchester United's identity. For decades, the club has distinguished itself through its commitment to developing and trusting young players, creating a pathway from academy to first team that became the envy of football. If that pathway is breaking down, if talented youngsters like Heaven are looking externally for opportunities while wonder kids can't break through even when expensive signings underperform, it represents a profound loss of what has traditionally made United special. Ruben Amorim's role in addressing these challenges cannot be overstated. He arrived at a club that had lost its way, that seemed unsure of its identity and approach, that was making expensive mistakes in recruitment while failing to capitalize on its youth development capabilities. His decisions about youth opportunities, performance standards, and player retention will either restore clarity and direction or perpetuate the confusion that has characterized United's post-Ferguson era. The Marcus Rashford situation, in particular, represents a potential watershed moment. If Manchester United's greatest homegrown talent of this generation leaves for Barcelona, it will be analyzed for years as either a necessary step in the club's evolution or a catastrophic failure to retain their best assets. The outcome depends not just on whether Rashford stays or goes, but on what happens afterward. Does United improve without him, or does his departure leave a void that proves impossible to fill? For Heaven, the wonder kid waiting for opportunities, and Rashford, the established star weighing his options, these decisions will shape careers and potentially legacies. For Manchester United, they represent tests of institutional identity and competence. Can the club provide the development pathways, tactical fit, and competitive ambition that keeps talented players from academy prospects through established stars committed to the Old Trafford project? The answers will emerge not in dramatic moments, but through accumulated decisions across weeks and months. Will Heaven feel his international choice aligns with his United career trajectory or puts him at odds with it? Will the wonder kid earn their chance and seize it? Or will they become another talent that slipped away? Will Rashford stay and rediscover his best form? Or will Barcelona's camp new host the next chapter of his career? What we can say with certainty is that Manchester United stand at a crossroads where the past present, and future intersect uncomfortably. The club's glorious history creates expectations that current realities struggle to meet. The decisions facing Amorim regarding youth development, team selection, and player retention will determine whether United can bridge that gap between their storied past and their desired future, or whether the distance will continue growing until what once made them special exists only in memory. The Theater of Dreams has witnessed countless defining moments across its history. Instances where decisions made or opportunities seized changed the club's trajectory. As Ayden Heaven considers his international future, as Wonder Kids train hoping for their chance, and as Marcus Rashford weighs whether his future lies in Manchester or Barcelona, United finds itself in another such moment. How the club responds will be remembered and analyzed for years to come, either as the beginning of renewed greatness or another chapter in a decline that seemed to deepen with each passing season. The stakes could not be higher, and the football world watches with keen interest to see which direction Manchester United's story turns next. The Chelsea and Atletico dimensions. Gallagher's history with Chelsea adds psychological and narrative complexity to any potential move to Manchester United. Having come through Chelsea's academy and represented them in the Premier League, joining one of their traditional rivals creates natural storylines. For Gallagher personally, there might be some desire to prove something to his former club, to demonstrate that they were wrong to let him leave. This motivation could work in United's favor if properly channeled. His current situation at Atletico Madrid also factors into the equation. If Gallagher is thriving in Spain and fully integrated into Diego Simeone's system, convincing him to return to England might prove difficult regardless of United's interest. Conversely, if he's found the transition to Spanish football challenging or misses the Premier League's environment, he might be receptive to a return. Understanding his mindset and satisfaction level at Atletico is crucial intelligence for United's recruitment team. The deal's feasibility also depends on Atletico's willingness to sell. Spanish clubs often operate under different financial pressures than their English counterparts, and Atletico in particular has sometimes needed to generate funds through player sales. If they're facing financial pressures or have identified a replacement, €30 million might prove acceptable. But if they view Gallagher as integral to their plans, no amount of United interest will matter. Alternative scenarios and opportunity cost. Pursuing Gallagher for €30 million also involves opportunity cost considerations. Could that money be better spent elsewhere? Are there younger players with higher potential ceilings available for similar fees? Might waiting until summer provide better value or more options? These questions don't have definitively correct answers, but they must be honestly confronted before committing resources. The January timing creates its own dynamics. If United believes Gallagher could meaningfully improve their chances of Champions League qualification, and that qualification would generate far more than €30 million in revenue and prestige, then the investment becomes easier to justify even if the summer might offer better alternatives. The calculation involves probabilities, projected outcomes, and risk assessment rather than simple player evaluation. There's also the question of what happens if United doesn't get Gallagher. Have they identified adequate alternative targets? Or does missing out on him leave them scrambling for inferior options in the window's final days? Strong recruitment processes always include contingency planning, and United's pursuit of Gallagher should exist within a broader framework of identified targets across different price points and profiles. The broader pattern, United's midfield strategy. Gallagher's potential arrival must be understood as part of Manchester United's broader midfield strategy rather than an isolated transaction. If United is simultaneously or alternatively pursuing Elliot Anderson, James Garner, or the four-time Premier League winner discussed earlier, it suggests they've identified central midfield as the priority area for investment. This makes tactical sense given Amorim's system and United's current squad composition. The pattern suggests United is targeting a specific profile: energetic, tactically intelligent, Premier League experienced midfielders in their early to mid-20s who can contribute immediately while also developing further. This is smart recruitment thinking, focusing on players who fit a consistent profile rather than pursuing disparate targets without clear strategic coherence. If Gallagher is indeed the primary target within this framework, his €30 million price tag represents the benchmark against which alternatives can be measured. However, United must guard against tunnel vision. If Gallagher becomes unavailable or proves too expensive relative to his value, the recruitment team must be prepared to pivot toward alternatives with equal conviction rather than settling for clearly inferior options simply to make some signing. The history of transfer windows includes too many examples of clubs making poor decisions in the final days because they felt they needed to sign anyone, rather than accepting that sometimes no deal is better than a bad deal. Financial fair play and squad management implications. The regulatory context. Any January transfer activity by Manchester United must occur within the constraints of financial fair play regulations and the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules. These frameworks limit how much clubs can spend relative to their revenues and create consequences for breaches ranging from points deductions to transfer bans. For a club of United's size and revenue, these constraints are less restrictive than for smaller clubs, but they still impose discipline on spending decisions. The €30 million potential outlay for Gallagher, any fee for the four-time Premier League winner, and costs associated with other potential targets must all be balanced against United's current financial position. The club's substantial revenues provide significant spending power, but they've also made expensive acquisitions in recent windows that factor into these calculations. Any January spending must be sustainable within the broader financial picture, ensuring that it doesn't constrain summer options or create future compliance issues. For Amorim, this situation represents an early test of his man management capabilities. His reputation from Sporting Lisbon included strong relationships with players and an ability to maximize squad commitment to his tactical approach. However, Portugal and the Premier League present different challenges, different player personalities, and different media environments. How he navigates this dilemma will send signals not just about his approach to squad management, but about the culture he's trying to build at Manchester United. The transfer solution, identifying the missing pieces. Amorim's tactical requirements. The reports that Ruben Amorim has been handed a transfer solution suggest that his coaching staff, in conjunction with United's recruitment department, believes they've identified specific players or profiles that would address tactical deficiencies in the current squad. This represents a significant shift from recent United transfer strategies, which often appeared reactive or opportunistic rather than systematically aligned with a clear tactical vision. Amorim's preferred system, refined during his successful tenure at Sporting, makes specific demands of his players. His defensive structure typically features three center-backs, requiring defenders comfortable in possession and capable of stepping forward in the midfield when the opportunity presents. His wing-backs must possess exceptional stamina, tactical discipline to know when to advance and when to tuck in, and technical quality to deliver in the final third. His midfielders need to be positionally intelligent, capable of playing in tight spaces, and willing to cover significant ground both defensively and offensively. When we consider that Amorim has been handed a solution, it likely means that scouts and analysts have identified players currently available who possess these specific attributes. This could manifest in several ways. Perhaps United has identified a center-back playing elsewhere who demonstrates the ball-playing qualities Amorim prizes. Maybe they found a wing-back whose profile perfectly matches the demanding hybrid role the system requires. Or possibly they've targeted a midfielder whose tactical intelligence and technical security would provide the control Amorim seeks in central areas. The integration challenge. Identifying the right player represents only the first step. Successfully integrating new signings into a team mid-season, particularly when that team is still adapting to a new tactical system, presents significant challenges. Unlike summer arrivals who benefit from preseason preparation, January signings must often learn complex tactical instructions while simultaneously adjusting to new teammates, a new league environment, and the pressure of immediate performance expectations. For Amorim, the solution must therefore be someone who can minimize this integration period. This might mean targeting players with Premier League experience who understand the league's physical and tactical demands. It could involve pursuing players who have previously worked in similar tactical systems, reducing the learning curve regarding positional responsibilities and movement patterns. Or it might mean prioritizing younger players whose adaptability and eagerness to learn compensate for any initial unfamiliarity with Amram's specific requirements. The coaching staff's confidence that they've identified a solution suggests they've thought carefully about these integration factors. The worst January signings are typically those made in panic, pursuing any available player who vaguely fits a positional need without considering whether they can actually contribute immediately or fit the team style. If United's approach represents genuine analysis of how specific players would function within Amram's system, it marks a welcome departure from some previous transfer strategies. Balancing immediate impact with long-term value. Any transfer solution must also balance competing time frames. Manchester United needs immediate reinforcement to secure Champions League qualification and potentially challenge for domestic cups. However, the club must also think beyond this season, ensuring that January signings represent long-term assets rather than expensive short-term fixes that become problems themselves within a year or two. The ideal solution would be a player entering their prime years, someone with 5 to 7 years of peak performance ahead who could immediately improve the team while also retaining or appreciating in value. This profile is difficult to secure in January when clubs are reluctant to sell such players mid-season. Yet if United has genuinely identified such an opportunity, it would represent astute business that addresses both present needs and future planning. Alternatively, the solution might involve a younger player whose current level can contribute immediately while their potential suggests significant future improvement. This approach carries more risk, as development is never guaranteed, but it aligns with a sustainable recruitment model focused on identifying value before it becomes universally recognized and priced accordingly. Premier League proven. The four-time champion and England international. Decoding the target profile. The headline referencing a four-time Premier League winner with 82 England caps immediately narrows the potential candidate pool dramatically. Such credentials indicate a player of exceptional pedigree, someone who has experienced the highest levels of English and international football, accumulated silverware, and earned the consistent trust of England managers. For both Manchester United and Tottenham, to be linked with this player suggests someone either available on a free transfer in the final 6 months of their contract or in a situation where their current club might consider selling. This profile points toward a player likely in their late 20s or early 30s, someone whose experience represents both their greatest asset and potentially a concern regarding how many elite years remain. The 4 Premier League titles suggest time at one of England's traditional powerhouses, most likely Manchester City, Manchester United, or Chelsea during their respective periods of dominance. The 82 England caps indicate sustained international recognition over many years, though it's worth noting that this player may no longer be a regular England starter, which could factor into their availability. The appeal for Manchester United. For Manchester United, pursuing such an established figure makes considerable sense within their current context. Amram inherited a squad that sometimes lacks maturity, tactical sophistication, and winner's mentality. Adding someone who has repeatedly experienced title races, crucial matches, and the pressure situations that accompany them could provide invaluable leadership and mentorship alongside their on-field contributions. These considerations also affect squad planning beyond just incoming transfers. If United signs multiple players in January, do they need to sell others to maintain squad size limits and wage bill sustainability? The maximum squad size regulations mean that additions often require subtractions, creating a complex optimization problem where the club must balance current squad depth needs against regulatory requirements. The wage structure impact. Transfer fees represent only one component of a player's cost. Wages, agent fees, signing bonuses, and performance-related add-ons can significantly exceed the headline transfer fee over a contract's lifetime. When United considers spending €30 million on Gallagher, They must simultaneously evaluate what wage package he would command and how that fits within their existing structure. Wage structure management is crucial for squad harmony and financial sustainability. If Gallagher arrives on wages significantly higher than players of comparable status within the current squad, it creates resentment and provides ammunition for existing players seeking improved contracts. Conversely, if United lowballs the offer to maintain wage structure, they risk losing out to competitors willing to pay more. Finding the right balance requires sophisticated negotiation and clear principles about what different performance levels justify in compensation terms. The challenge is particularly acute for January transfers because the compressed time frame limits negotiating leverage. Selling clubs and player representatives know that desperation increases as the deadline approaches, creating incentives to delay negotiations in hopes of extracting better terms. United must maintain discipline, establishing walkaway points beyond which the deal no longer makes financial sense regardless of the football benefits. Squad building philosophy. Beyond specific transfers, these decisions reflect and shape Manchester United's broader squad building philosophy. Are they prioritizing young, developing players with high potential who might take time to reach their peak? Or are they focusing on established performers who can contribute immediately but might have limited resale value? The answer likely involves some combination, but the specific balance matters. Pursuing players like Gallagher at 30 million euros, or the four-time Premier League winner, suggests a focus on proven quality and immediate contribution rather than long-term projects. This makes sense given Amorim's need to show results relatively quickly and United's ambitions for Champions League qualification. However, it must be balanced with continued investment in younger talents who represent the future, ensuring that the squad doesn't age collectively and require wholesale replacement in a few years. The January window also offers opportunities to correct previous mistakes. If United has players who clearly don't fit Amorim's system or whose value is declining, moving them on in January, even at a loss, might prove strategically sound if it creates space for better fits. The sunk cost fallacy, where clubs hold on to failing investments simply because they cost so much initially, has damaged too many squads. Amorim and United's leadership must be willing to acknowledge mistakes and move on decisively when appropriate, navigating complexity toward clarity. As we synthesize the multiple strands of Manchester United's January transfer situation, several key themes emerge that will determine whether this window represents progress or another frustrating chapter in the club's recent history. The challenges are substantial: managing player discontent, identifying solutions that genuinely fit Amorim's tactical vision, competing with rivals for proven talent, and making significant financial commitments under uncertainty. Yet within this complexity lies genuine opportunity for a club that has too often stumbled in transfer markets to finally demonstrate strategic coherence and sound judgment. Ruben Amorim's role in all of this cannot be overstated. January will provide the first real test of his influence over recruitment decisions, his ability to integrate new players into his tactical framework, and his judgment regarding which profiles truly suit his system. The fact that his coaching staff believes they've identified specific solutions suggests a proactive approach, a willingness to clearly articulate needs rather than vaguely calling for better players. This specificity, if backed by the recruitment department and club leadership, could mark a genuine shift in how Manchester United approaches transfer windows. The Conor Gallagher situation serves as a microcosm for the broader challenges United faces. At 30 million euros, he represents neither a bargain nor an extravagant gamble, but rather a calculated investment that could prove inspired or disappointing depending on integration, tactics, and circumstances beyond simple player quality. This middle ground, where significant resources are committed without absolute certainty of success, is where most transfer business occurs and where clubs differentiate themselves through superior judgment and planning. The competition with Tottenham for the experienced Premier League winner adds another dimension, forcing United to move decisively while avoiding the trap of competing for players simply because rivals want them. The recruitment team, must maintain clear priorities, pursue targets according to genuine strategic need rather than reactive thinking, and be willing to walk away when valuations become irrational. This discipline has sometimes eluded Manchester United in recent years, leading to overpayments and awkward squad compositions. Perhaps most significantly, the various dilemmas and opportunities facing Amorim this January will reveal much about Manchester United's broader direction. Is this a club with clear vision executing a coherent plan, or one still operating reactively and making it up as they go? Are they building toward a sustainable future or desperately trying to fix immediate problems without considering long-term implications? The answers will emerge not just through which players arrive and depart, but through how those decisions are made, communicated, and integrated into the larger project. For Manchester United supporters who have endured a decade of disappointment since Sir Alex Ferguson's retirement, this January window carries particular weight. It represents another test of whether the club has finally learned from past mistakes, whether new leadership can impose order on previously chaotic processes, and whether Ruben Amorim is the manager who can finally restore United to football summit. No single transfer window will answer these questions definitively, but the decisions made in January will provide important evidence about the club's trajectory. As the window approaches and then unfolds, Manchester United must balance multiple competing priorities: immediate results against long-term building, proven quality against developing potential, financial discipline against competitive ambition. Threading this needle is never easy, particularly under the intense scrutiny that accompanies one of football's most famous institutions. Yet it's precisely this challenge that defines successful football administration, separating clubs that consistently compete for honors from those that occasionally flirt with success before falling back. The headlines we've explored, the transfer dilemmas, the identified solutions, the competition for established stars, and the specific pursuit of Conor Gallagher, all represent pieces of a larger puzzle that Manchester United is attempting to solve. Whether they successfully assemble, that puzzle remains to be seen. What we can say is that January 2025 will provide crucial insight into whether this club, under new management and with renewed ambition, has finally developed the strategic sophistication and sound judgment that sustainable success requires. The theater of dreams awaits to see whether this January brings them closer to that success or represents another frustrating chapter in their ongoing attempts to recapture past glories.
Manchester United News Roundup. Transfer moves, tactical decisions, and Premier League action. The theater of dreams continues to be a stage of drama, ambition, and relentless pursuit of excellence as Manchester United navigates one of the most crucial periods of their season. Under the stewardship of Ruben Amorim, the Red Devils find themselves at a crossroads where every decision, every match, and every tactical adjustment could define their trajectory for years to come. From bold statements about emerging talents to strategic maneuvers in the transfer market, United's current landscape presents a fascinating study of a club determined to reclaim its position among football's elite. Welcome to this comprehensive analysis. Football supporters around the world understand that Manchester United is never just a football club. It represents tradition, ambition, and the eternal quest for silverware that has defined English football for generations. As we delve into the latest developments surrounding the club, we invite you on a journey to the corridors of Old Trafford, where youth meets experience, where tactical innovation confronts Premier League reality, and where January transfer speculation reaches fever pitch. This comprehensive roundup examines four critical storylines that are shaping Manchester United's immediate future. We'll explore Ruben Amorim's faith in young midfielder Kobbie Mainoo, dissect the surprising loan recall of Toby Collier, analyze the potential return of former academy graduate James Garner alongside interest in Elliot Anderson, and preview tonight's crucial clash against Newcastle United. Each story offers a window into the club's philosophy, ambitions, and the challenges that lie ahead during this make-or-break period. Ruben Amorim's vision for Kobbie Mainoo, a vote of confidence in youth. The manager's declaration. Ruben Amorim has never been one to mince words, and his recent comments about Kobbie Mainoo demonstrate the Portuguese tactician's unwavering belief in the young midfielder's potential. In a press conference that captured headlines across the football world, Amram made it abundantly clear that ManUtd represents a cornerstone of Manchester United's future, dismissing any speculation about the 19-year-old's long-term prospects at the club. The manager's statement comes at a pivotal moment for both ManUtd and Manchester United, after a breakthrough season that saw the Stockport-born midfielder emerge as one of the Premier League's most exciting young talents. Questions have inevitably arisen about consistency, development trajectory, and whether United can provide the platform for his continued growth. Amram's public backing serves multiple purposes. It shields a young player from undue pressure, signals to potential suitors that ManUtd is not available at any price, and reinforces the manager's commitment to building a squad around homegrown talent. The make-or-break context. The timing of Amram's declaration is particularly significant given Manchester United's position in the league table and the upcoming fixtures that could define their season. The Red Devils face what many pundits are calling a make-or-break run of matches, where drop points could severely compromise their hopes of Champions League qualification. In this high-pressure environment, Amram's decision to publicly champion ManUtd suggests the manager sees a teenager as part of the solution rather than a player who needs protecting from such intensity. ManUtd's technical abilities have never been in question. His composure on the ball, vision, and ability to progress play through the thirds mark him as a midfielder of genuine quality. However, the physical and mental demands of consecutive high-stakes Premier League matches represent a different challenge entirely. Amram's faith in ManUtd during this critical period indicates that he believes the youngster possesses not just the technical skills, but also the psychological resilience required to perform when the pressure is at its peak. Tactical integration and development. From a tactical perspective, Amram's system demands intelligence, positional awareness, and technical security from his midfielders. His preferred approach, which often features a three-man defense and dynamic wingbacks, requires central midfielders who can both shield the defense and facilitate attacks. ManUtd's ability to receive the ball under pressure, turn, and distribute quickly makes him ideally suited to this role. The manager's comment suggests that he views ManUtd not as a prospect for the future, but as a current solution to United's midfield challenges. The developmental aspect of Amram's approach cannot be understated. Rather than loaning ManUtd out or gradually introducing him through substitute appearances, the manager appears committed to accelerating his growth through consistent first-team football in meaningful matches. This sink-or-swim philosophy has risks, but history shows that many of Manchester United's greatest midfielders, from Paul Scholes to Ryan Giggs, benefit from being thrown into the deep end at a young age. Toby Collier's surprise loan recall, strategic planning or injury crisis response. The unexpected decision. Manchester United's decision to recall Toby Collier from his loan spell has raised eyebrows throughout the football community. Loan recalls mid-season are relatively rare and typically signal either exceptional circumstances at the parent club or a recognition that the loan arrangement is not serving its intended purpose. In Collier's case, the recall appears to be driven by United's needs rather than any failure on the player's part, suggesting that Amram and his coaching staff have identified a specific role for the 21-year-old midfielder in their plans. Collier had been gaining valuable experience and regular minutes at his loan club, developing the physical and tactical aspects of his game away from the intense scrutiny that comes with being a Manchester United player. The decision to cut short this developmental period indicates that the club believes he can make a meaningful contribution to the first team immediately, or at minimum, that his presence provides necessary depth during a congested fixture schedule. Analyzing the tactical rationale. The recall of Collier must be understood within the context of Manchester United's squad composition and recent injury concerns. If the club has identified vulnerabilities in their midfield depth, particularly in defensive midfield positions, Collier's return makes strategic sense. His physical profile and defensive instincts could provide Amram with tactical flexibility, particularly in matches where a more conservative midfield approach is required. Furthermore, Amram's system often demands versatility from his players. If Collier has demonstrated the ability to play multiple midfield roles or even drop into defense when required, his utility value to the squad increases significantly. The manager may view Collier as a chess piece who, while perhaps not yet ready for every starting assignment, provides options that weren't available before his recall. The broader implications for United's loan philosophy. This recall also prompts questions about Manchester United's broader approach to player development through loans. The club has historically struggled to successfully integrate loan returnees into the first team, with many promising youngsters eventually moving on permanently after their loan spells. If Collier's recall represents a genuine pathway to first-team involvement rather than simply squad padding, it could signal a more thoughtful approach to managing young players' careers. The decision also sends a message to other United youngsters currently out on loan. Perform well, and there is a route back to Old Trafford. This could have motivational effects across the club's extensive loan network, encouraging players to view their temporary moves as genuine stepping stones rather than indefinite exile from the first team. James Garner and Elliot Anderson, midfield reinforcement strategy. The Garner reunion narrative. Few stories capture the imagination of football supporters quite like the return of a former academy graduate. James Garner's potential comeback to Manchester United represents exactly this kind of narrative, complete with the emotional resonance that comes with a local product returning home. Garner, who progressed through United's youth system before moving to Everton, has continued his development in the Premier League, demonstrating the qualities that made him highly rated during his time at Carrington. The reported cut-price nature of the potential January move adds another layer of intrigue. In an era where Premier League clubs regularly spend tens of millions on midfield reinforcements, the possibility of reacquiring a player who already understands the club's culture and expectations at a reasonable fee represents savvy business. Garner's technical ability, particularly his passing range and set-piece delivery, would add genuine quality to United's midfield options. However, the Garner story also raises questions about the club's recruitment strategy. If he possessed the quality Manchester United now seeks, why was he allowed to leave permanently in the first place? The answer likely lies in the different managerial regimes and tactical philosophies that have cycled through Old Trafford in recent years. What one manager deemed surplus to requirements, another might view as essential. Amorim's system may simply be better suited to Garner's strengths than previous tactical setups. Elliot Anderson, the primary target. While Garner represents a sentimental option, reports suggest that Elliot Anderson has been identified as Manchester United's #1 choice to lead their new-look midfield. The Newcastle midfielder has impressed with his energy, technical ability, and tactical intelligence since breaking into the Magpies' first team. His profile suggests a player entering his prime years with the physical tools to dominate Premier League midfields and the technical quality to implement Amorim's possession-based approach. Anderson's potential arrival would represent a significant statement of intent from Manchester United. Pursuing a player who is established at a rival club demonstrates ambition and suggests that the club is willing to invest significantly to address their midfield deficiencies. The midfielder's box-to-box capabilities, defensive work rate, and ability to contribute in attacking phases make him an attractive proposition for any top-6 club. And securing his signature would represent a coup for United. The tactical fit appears natural. Amorim's system thrives when midfielders can transition quickly between defensive and offensive phases, maintaining positional discipline while also supporting attacks. Anderson's energy levels and tactical awareness suggest he could excel in this demanding role, providing the dynamism that United's midfield has occasionally lacked this season. The strategic midfield overhaul. Taken together, the interest in both Garner and Anderson signals Manchester United's recognition that their midfield requires reinforcement. Rather than pursuing a single marquee signing, the club appears to be considering multiple options across different price points and profiles. This diversified approach suggests a more mature recruitment strategy, one that balances immediate needs with financial sustainability. The focus on midfield also aligns with Amorim's tactical priorities. Control of the center of the pitch determines success in the system, and without midfielders who can dominate possession, win duels, and dictate tempo, the entire tactical structure becomes vulnerable. By targeting players like Anderson and Garner, United are addressing the engine room that powers everything else on the pitch. January transfer window dynamics. The January transfer window presents unique challenges and opportunities. Clubs are generally reluctant to sell key players mid-season, particularly when they have their own objectives to pursue. Newcastle, for instance, will be wary of strengthening a direct rival for European places. This reality means that Manchester United may need to pay premium prices or offer creative deal structures to secure their targets. The reported interest in Garner as a potential cut-price alternative to Anderson suggests that United are thinking strategically about different scenarios. If Newcastle proves unwilling to negotiate on Anderson, having Garner as a backup option prevents a club from entering the second half of the season without any midfield reinforcement. This kind of contingency planning has often been absent from United's transfer dealings in recent years, so its presence now is encouraging. Newcastle versus Manchester United. Tonight's crucial encounter. The £10 million man's potential return. As Manchester United prepare to face Newcastle United tonight, speculation swirls around the potential return of a player purchased for £10 million. While the specific player remains a subject of debate, the narrative highlights the ongoing squad management decisions that Amram faces with every team selection. Whether this refers to a previously injured player returning to fitness or someone who's been out of favor regaining their place, the storyline underscores the depth considerations that become crucial during a congested fixture schedule. Squad rotation during the winter period is essential for maintaining performance levels across multiple competitions. The decision to include or exclude any player tonight will be scrutinized not just for its immediate tactical implications, but for what it signals about that player's future role in Amram's plans. A return to the starting 11 can rebuild confidence and momentum, while continued absence can fuel transfer speculation, predicted team selection, and tactical setup. Analyzing Newcastle United's predicted lineup offers insights into the challenge Manchester United will face. Newcastle, under their manager's guidance, have developed into one of the Premier League's most organized and physically imposing teams. Their ability to press aggressively, defend resolutely, and transition quickly into attack makes them dangerous opponents for any team, particularly one that is still adapting to a new tactical system. Manchester United's team selection will need to balance attacking ambition with defensive solidity. St. James Park is a notoriously difficult venue for visiting teams, with the atmosphere generated by Newcastle's passionate supporters providing a genuine home advantage. Amram will need his players to show composure, mental strength, and tactical discipline to navigate this challenging environment successfully. The midfield battle will be particularly crucial. If Elliot Anderson features for Newcastle, Manchester United will see firsthand the qualities they reportedly admire in the player. This adds another layer of intrigue to the encounter. United's midfielders will need to match Newcastle's intensity, while also providing the technical quality to unlock a well-organized defense. The stakes for both clubs. Tonight's match carries significant implications for both clubs' seasonal objectives. For Manchester United, dropping points would damage their pursuit of Champions League qualification and increase pressure on Amram during his critical early months in charge. For Newcastle, victory would strengthen their own European ambitions and provide a psychological boost after recent results. The match also represents an opportunity for Manchester United to demonstrate progress under their new manager. While results remain the ultimate measure, performances against top-half teams offer evidence of whether Amram's tactical ideas are taking root. A convincing display, regardless of the result, would suggest that the transition period is progressing positively. Key individual battles. Beyond team tactics, tonight's match will feature several compelling individual duels. Newcastle's defensive organization will test Manchester United's attacking players, requiring creativity, movement, and clinical finishing to break down. Conversely, United's defense will need to contain Newcastle's attacking threats, which can exploit space behind high defensive lines with pace and precision. The midfield zone, as always, will be where the match is won or lost. Whichever team can establish dominance in central areas will dictate tempo, control possession, and create the platform for attacking opportunities. For Manchester United, this represents both a challenge and an opportunity to showcase the midfield qualities they've been working to develop under Amram's guidance.
Conclusion. A defining period for Manchester United. As we synthesize these interconnected storylines, a clear picture emerges of Manchester United at a crossroads. Ruben Amram's faith in young talents like Kobbie Mainoo demonstrates a commitment to building for the future while simultaneously demanding results in the present. The surprise recall of Toby Collier and the pursuit of midfield reinforcements through James Garner and Elliot Anderson illustrate a club actively trying to address its weaknesses rather than passively accepting them. Tonight's encounter with Newcastle United represents more than just 3 points in the league table. It is an examination of Manchester United's progress under their new manager, a test of their mental resilience during a demanding period, and an opportunity to build momentum heading into the crucial months ahead. The decisions Amram makes regarding team selection, tactical setup, and in-game adjustments will all be scrutinized as indicators of his suitability for one of football's most demanding jobs. The broader narrative encompasses questions that go beyond any single match or transfer window. Can Manchester United successfully integrate youth development with the immediate demands for success? Will their transfer strategy finally achieve the consistency and coherence that has eluded the club in recent years? Can Ruben Amorim implement his tactical philosophy quickly enough to secure Champions League qualification while also laying foundations for long-term success? These questions won't be answered tonight, nor will they be resolved during the January transfer window. Instead, they represent ongoing processes that will define Manchester United's trajectory over the coming months and years. What we can observe now is a club that appears to be thinking more strategically about squad construction, that is willing to back young talents while also pursuing experienced reinforcements, and that has appointed a manager with clear tactical ideas and the conviction to implement them. For Manchester United supporters, this period demands patience alongside expectation. The club's illustrious history creates pressure that few institutions can match, but sustainable success requires time to build. Amorim's declarations about Manu, the strategic thinking behind transfer targets, and the approach to tonight's crucial fixture all suggest a club trying to balance immediate needs with longer-term vision. As the final whistle approaches on tonight's match, and as the January transfer window progresses toward its conclusion, Manchester United's journey continues. The Theatre of Dreams remains a stage where ambitions are pursued, where young talent emerge, and where every decision carries weight. Whether these current storylines will be remembered as the foundation of future success or as missed opportunities in a turbulent period remains to be seen. What is certain is that Manchester United, as always, will continue to captivate, frustrate, and inspire in equal measure as they pursue the excellence that their history demands and their supporters expect.